Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to RJ's for today's edition of Lunch with Monty Coleman. Last week, UAPB picked up their first win of the season with a 45-43 triple overtime win over Alcorn State. This past Thursday at Jack Spinks Marino Castle Stadium in Alcorn State, Mississippi, broadcasted live on ESPNU. For his performance, UAPB quarterback Mr. Brandon Duncan was named FCS Offensive Player of the Week. Let's give him a round of applause. This week, the Golden Lions will travel to Little Rock, Arkansas to take on Jackson State on Saturday, September 24th at War Memorial Stadium and a 4 p.m. start. Last week, the Tigers fell to Grambling State 35-14 at Veteran Memorial Stadium in Jackson, Mississippi. At this time, we ask that the players please introduce themselves to the media. Mr. Duncan.
Brandon Duncan, redshirt junior quarterback.
Shafan Alcorn, sophomore cornerback.
All right, we'll have opening comments from the players talk about last week's win over Alcorn. Mr. Duncan.
Last week's win, it was a hard-fought victory, triple overtime. Me and my teammates, we never gave up. Coming into the game, we knew we could win from film study. We knew, just like Coach Coleman said, not what they do is what we do. And that was our motto going into the game. We made sure that we started fast and we finished.
Mr. Alcorn.
I think we played very good. Like, of course, what B just said, it's not what they do, it's what we had did. And we had fought to the end, played very hard.
All right, we'll have opening comments from the top dog himself, head coach Monty Coleman.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Ronnie. Thank you, Ms. Nikki, again for allowing us to host the press conference here at RJ's. We enjoy this. I want to thank all the ladies that greeted us when we came in the door. It's a total different feeling this week than it was last week. Last week was one of the worst feelings I've had since coaching. And this week, of course, is one of the best feelings I've had since coaching. These young men to my left and to my right did an outstanding job getting their team ready to play last week, and that's what they did. The game was a very big game for us. Of course, it was the opener for us for our SWAC play, playing the two-time champ Alcorn, and we played. We preach to them every week as coaches the things that we need to do. One of the things that we need to do is we need to start fast. We got off to a fast start in that game. And Mr. Brandon Duncan to Willie Young, a long pass, and went on in for a touchdown shortly after that. And then the defense came out and stopped them with Mr. Alcorn and others. But it was definitely a team effort. It was a very big game for us, a game that we knew was going to be in hostile territory there at Alcorn. It was a national televised game. I've never gotten so many text messages on my phone after that game, people all around the country watching that game, and it did something for us as a team and definitely for us as a university, for all the people that was watching. So it was definitely a big win for us. I was talking with Coach Blevins just a minute ago, and just to rehash, the game against Panhandle was a very, very bitter loss for us. But it could have been one of the best things that ever happened to us, because I think it brought the kids back down to earth and let them know that they had to play all 60 minutes in order to play. I commend Brandon. I commend Brandon. Brandon was the national FCS
Offensive Player of the Week.
And he was also SWAC Player of the Week. Mr. Alcorn, he's improved every week at cornerback for us. He's playing extremely well, and the heart of our team lies within these two young men that's sitting here. Now, the one thing I told the team on Friday, we came in after the game, we played Thursday, we came in to work on Friday. I told them the quicker we get that game behind us, the better off we'll be. So we were able to watch the film on Friday. We put that game behind us against Alcorn. I gave them 2 days off, which was Saturday and Sunday. We came back in, had a very spirited practice yesterday, and everything from this point forward will be focused on Jackson State. We're not looking ahead past Jackson State. They're a very good football team. They lost a very bitter loss to Grambling this past weekend, so we know they're going to come in upset and trying to get their first SWAC win. So the thing that we've got to do is worry about ourselves, practice hard, and go out and play very well on Saturday.
All right, Coach, have you watched any film on Jackson State as of yet?
Yes, we have. We watched film the last few days. Jackson State is a very good football team. They're led by their quarterback. Last week against Grambling, they played 3 quarterbacks. I'm not sure why, but they did play 3 quarterbacks. They fell behind in that Grambling game early. They love to throw the football. They've got a big running back. They will run, but they're a passing team right now. On defense, they're going to blitz you. They're going to play cover 2, and they're a very aggressive defensive team. So we've got our hands full this weekend against Jackson State, and plus it's a conference game. So regardless of what they did last week, they will come with their ears pinned back ready to play this week.
All right, we'll take questions from the media at this time. Mr. Tim Stubbs.
Appreciate it. Coach, what a win.
Yes.
We were talking earlier, and obviously you being a minister, I said that game will preach. And
I agree.
It was almost like a double win. Talk about the resiliency of your team. They played pretty well through the first 3 quarters, but you still found yourself down 30-14 midway through the 4th. Talk about leading up to that point. You guys had played better into the 4th, but now you're still down on the scoreboard, and you found a way to overcome. Talk about that.
You know, Tim, it was exciting to be a part of the sideline. You know, I look at other opponents' sidelines, and I gauge the momentum by the sidelines in a lot of cases. We kept the momentum even we were behind. We had the momentum. Guys on the sideline was cheering for each other. Guys on the sideline was helping each other when they came off the field. It was kind of a re-snap of what we had in 12, in 11, and in 12. Guys never, I didn't see defeat in nobody's eyes on the sidelines and on the field. Everybody kept saying, we're going to win this football game. So as a coach, it was very encouraging to see the guys pulling together as a team, because that's the one thing that I do preach. You can't win without being a team. This is a team sport. We need all 11 guys playing at one time, and that's what we had on Saturday. So there wasn't any defeat with the guys on the sidelines or the guys on the field. And we got a couple of calls here and there that didn't go our way, that I thought could have gone either way. But the guys didn't let anything deter them, and it was a great victory, great victory.
For the majority of the game, it really cleaned up the penalties compared to the first 2 games.
Yes.
I know that was big, obviously, because you were moving the ball some in the first 2 games, but a lot of those plays were getting called back.
That's right.
Didn't see as much as that in this past week's game.
We put a bigger emphasis in practice. I mean, we've always emphasized, you know, being a very disciplined football team on the field. And in practice, this week we put a little bit more emphasis. And what I mean by that is the number of penalties we got in practice mean that's how many up-downs we had to do after practice. So guys didn't want to do the up-downs, so they was a little more conscious of not doing the penalties in practice, and it carried over in the football game. So it was better from a penalty standpoint in this game than it has been in the previous 2.
Brandon, National Player of the Week. First of all, congratulations. That's quite an honor across the board, and SWAC Player of the Week as well. Over 500 yards, one of the top performances in school history in a single game. Truly phenomenal. And the Golden Lions needed every single one of those yards, and 3 for 3 on 2-point conversions. Just talk about the game a little bit, your performance. I know you got your home run hitter, Willie Young. got him involved, and he looked like the Willie of old. That was probably Willie's best game as a Golden Lion, except for maybe the SWAC championship. But talk about that a little bit, how you guys got him involved early and often.
Yeah, first I'd like to credit my old line, because without them, I wouldn't be able to get the ball off. But coming to the game, we knew we had a chance to win, because our offensive coordinator, Coach Ted White, he breaks down film tremendously for us. So he makes the game a lot easier, and he slows it down a lot for me. So just taking what I learned off the field from him and execute on the field makes my job easy. And Willie Young, he's a great receiver. He has a lot of speed. I don't think nobody in the SWAC could guard him. You know, just giving him a chance to catch the ball, he never disappoints.
And the play-action pass was there all night. Really got running the ball well in the third quarter with McDonald. And it seemed like that play action was money all night. Got the deep post with Willie, and they're still trying to figure out how to stop him. So talk about the 2-point conversions. Maybe it helped in overtime because you just had 2 of them to close out regulation. Talk about the 2-point conversions.
On the 2-point conversions, we had a play call, and as I scanned the field, I realized that they were playing off on our slot guys. So the route that we had called, I knew it was going to be open. And as I caught the ball, I realized he's still off of him, and I knew we had it. I just made a good throw, and my receivers came down with it. That's
awesome. And for Mr. Alcorn, you're a broadcaster's dream with your name being Alcorn, playing Alcorn. So I had fun with that all night. But, of course, you're from Newport, Arkansas. And just talk about your performance. Coach mentioned you've progressed each and every week. 8.5 tackles, I believe, against Panhandle. Came back several pass breakups against Alcorn. Talk about your role on the team and your involvement.
Well, first of all, I just want to thank my teammates for like putting faith in me, and coach as well for like putting me on the field. I had a couple of pass breakups and everything, but I keep striving each and every day. In practice, I work hard each and every day. Other than that, I mean, I'm just here doing my assignments, hoping to help the team each and every week.
And finally, Coach, getting it to overtime, they fumble. You want to make them play offense first. That's a smart strategy. Puts a lot of pressure on the other team's offense in case they don't score. And to just maybe make the plot thicker, we lay it on the ground as well. What's going through your mind at that point where you feel like you got it won, and then you give it back to them, and all of a sudden the overtimes just keep piling up?
You know, part of the strategy is to go on defense in any overtimes. And with that, we did. We won the coin toss. We went on defense. They fumble. So, you know, I'm thinking all we got to do is get on offense now, kick a field goal, and we walk out of there with 1 overtime.
Right.
Unfortunate for us, you know, Dante, he puts it on the ground for us, and they recover. So now the battle really begins. So, you know, the thing that I revert back to, Tim, is the bench. The guys on the sideline, they kept chanting, we won't lose this game, we're going to win this game. The enthusiasm that the team had, I had to believe with them that we were going to win this football game. And, you know, the resilience that they showed in the 3 overtimes, regardless of what happened, they kept playing, and they played hard. You know, Mr. Alcorn, he started flashing for us in spring ball. And I told Coach Anderson, the defensive back coach, that, you know, we need to take a look at this young man. He came back in the fall doing training camp and did just what he was doing in the spring. And now he's our starting corner. Mr. Duncan, I mean, we had a 5-man rotation or 5-man competition at quarterback. And he won it out. He went down to the wire. We've got some good quarterbacks on the team. But right now, we feel very confident in the performance of Mr. Duncan. Now, I say all of that with a grain of salt. I commend these guys. I commend the team. But in order for us to be successful from this day forth, we've got to dismiss this game. Great victory for us. And the better we are at letting this game go and concentrate more on Jackson State, of course, the better we're going to play that. So that's our focus right now is Jackson State. It's going to be a tough game coming in, and I feel very confident at this point of our chances of winning that football game.
The game in Little Rock, always a great atmosphere.
Yes.
Get a chance to see maybe some new fans that may not get a chance to come down to Pine Bluff. I know you got to be excited about playing in Little Rock.
That's a great vineyard for us. It's our second home stadium, and for us to be able to go to War Memorial, quote, the home of the Razorbacks, you know, that's big for us. It's almost as nice as going to one of the professional football fields and playing at their stadiums. So a lot of history. So a lot of great ball players have come through War Memorial. So it's a big deal for us to be there in Little Rock.
All right, we have questions from Mr. Pettigrew.
Thank you. Coach,
Yes.
first, this may not be politically correct, but I'd like to recognize someone. You know, I'm an avid fan
Yes.
of football, you know, UAPB football, but there's one that attends more games than me. He does not miss a game. That's Eddie Nicholson right over there. He when we got down to Alcorn, he was sitting there waiting, greeting all the UAPB fans. And I just thought that he needs to be recognized.
And he is a great fan. He comes to practice on occasions. I think I spoke to him at Alcorn. So I am very aware of Mr. Nicholson at all the games and his loyalty to our team.
Yes. Now, Coach.
Along with you, Mr. Bubba.
Well, thank you, sir. Coach, something that I noticed that's a pick-me-up for the team, offensive coordinator. And I know that you have a new linebacker coach, too. Yes. Would you tell us about the new first-year coaches saving Ted White for last and how they're functioning for you?
Actually, we have several new coaches in different positions. Football is a tough business. You know, as coaches, you know, you're here today and could be gone tomorrow. It's not a personal thing. It's always a business thing. So after the season last year, going in a different direction, we went in a different direction. And with that, I've got a new wide receiver coach, Mr. Mark Frederick. He was at Lincoln University coaching there. Was able to bring him in, and he's doing a tremendous job. A lot of the accolades and credit, well deserved by Brandon, could be also credited to the wide receivers. You know, you mentioned Willie Young, Tim mentioned Willie Young a minute ago, but I think Brandon hit about 6 or 7 different receivers in this game. So that's always good. So the receivers are doing their part to make him shine to get to 500 yards, which we're all excited about. So Mr. Mark Fredericks is our wide receiver coach. Mr. Damian Frencher is the linebacker coach. He comes from North Carolina A&T, and he's been around for about 30 years coaching, and has coached on all levels. Very, very knowledgeable and doing a great job for us at the linebacker position. And then the last one, like you said, is Mr. Ted White, who's our offensive coordinator. Actually, no, we have a defensive line coach, Mr. Carrillo. He's doing a great job with the defensive line. They're being very stingy, doing a lot of things with them as a young group of guys, but he's coaching them very well. Mr. Ted White is the offensive coordinator. He brings a lot of experience. The thing that attracted me to Ted White when I was doing my interviews for the quarterback position, his thing was he can develop young quarterbacks. And I had 5. I've got 5 young quarterbacks on my team that doesn't have a lot of SWAC hours. So when I heard that, I interviewed him. He agreed to come in, and I think the proof is in the pudding. From what Mr. Duncan has been able to do the last 3 football games. You know, one stat that, you know, people hadn't said, last year this time we had probably about 9 interceptions. Knock on wood, Mr. Duncan didn't have any interceptions after 3 football games, which is great. So that's a huge improvement for us. That's a huge improvement. And I think that's one of the reasons why we see us improving week in and week out is because of the turnovers. Right now, we're even for turnovers. We're not minus like we would have been last year. We're even right now. So, but those coaches are doing an outstanding job. coaching, outstanding job showing loyalty and teamwork.
The coach, last year, you know, you had it was 4 or 5 quarterbacks last year in your rotation.
Yes.
And you had a very difficult time trying to make the cream rise to the top.
Yes.
What happened with Brandon this year to make him a surface on top?
Well, I go back to Mr. Ted White of enhancing young quarterbacks. He's a perfectionist, Coach White is. And he's done a great job with all 5 of the quarterbacks. And it was a quarterback competition even this year. So I credit the ability of Mr. Duncan and also the ability of Mr. White, Coach White, in improving these young guys. It was a tough race. We wasn't sure until the beginning of the first game, or to the first week of the first game, who was going to be our starting quarterback. But Mr. Duncan played in training camp well enough to win that job, and he's doing a great job for us right now.
That's wonderful. Now, Coach, I would be remiss if I stood up here and didn't mention Willie Young. He's one of my boys, you know, and I remember from his freshman year when he caught the winning touchdown in our championship game.
Yes.
You know, that was his freshman year. The next year, he was ineligible. Then the next year, he got about 700 yards. Then I think he got 500. I see a stellar year coming from him this year, too. And I wanted to make sure, I was on the sidelines, and I saw Willie Young hurt. There were some other players that played hurt too, but Willie Young, it seemed as though his ankle was bothering him bad. He could hardly walk on the sideline, but look here, he come off one play and get right back out there and score. And I mean, it was amazing. Would you have a comment for him?
Well, Willie is definitely a prototype for us. Has great speed, got great hands, attacks the football. He's everything that you want in a great wide receiver. Willie, I don't know how many catches, but he had like 232 yards in this particular ball game. Now, 12 catches for 232. Cody Swain played well. All the receivers played well. Jalen Collins, our tight end, had a big long touchdown. But Willie wasn't hurt in this ball game. Willie's shoes were too tight.
Okay.
So Willie's feet was hurting. That was his problem. And I don't care where you are. You can be at church, you can be on the football field, you can be walking in a restaurant. If your shoes are too tight, then you got problems.
One other question, Coach. You have a plethora of running backs.
Yes.
And you've used a plethora in the recent years. I noticed that Dante McDonald seems to be the cream that's risen to the top with the running backs. And I know he's your big bruiser back. He's 6'2", 235, I think, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes.
Now, what caused him to rise to the top?
So, for the reasons you just stated, he is the big back. You see Coach White, he utilized all the backs depending on what play they're running. We saw that we could get outside a little bit more. George Munson is more of a speedier back, so we used him and his capabilities this past week. But when we absolutely need that big pounder, you've seen it for the last 3 games, we're going to put Dante McDonald in. And he's that big bruiser, and that's what he's there for.
All right, we have Mr. O.C. Brown from the Pine Bluff commercial.
All right, Coach Coleman.
Hey, Mr.
All
Brown.
right, talking about Dante McDonald, could you also talk about the emergence of Munson and how he's helped McDonald go along with bringing the running game to the forefront?
We've got several packages on the offensive side of the ball where you're going to utilize Keyshawn Williams, you're going to utilize Dante McDonald, you're going to have George Munson, you're going to have Gladden, you're going to have Montgomery, who's ran the ball for the last 3 weeks very well for us. So depending on what package they've got in the game is going to determine which back that we're going to put in. And right now, from an offensive standpoint, we're very confident in each of those guys getting in, contributing, depending on the package.
Okay. Now for you, Mr. Brandon Duncan, you were named the SWAC Player of the Week this week, throwing for 505 total yards and 4 touchdowns. Could you talk about your performance and keeping that going for the rest of the year?
Oh, yeah. Well, coming into this game, you know, film study was very important. knowing what defense like to do in certain situations. So when the game time came and we was in certain situations, they did everything we seen on film. So it made my job a lot easier. You know, coming into Jackson State game, I got to keep the momentum going. We want to start off 2-0 in the SWAC and make some noise.
Okay. Now, what do you have to say about your receiving corps stepping up, not only Willie Young, but those like Cody Swain as well, and how they help you come
I have a really
here?
good receiving corps. They a lot of speed, run good routes. They make my job a lot easy because they attack the ball. As long as I give them a chance, I'm confident that they'll come down with it. Okay.
Now, Coach Coleman, could you talk about just the feeling of getting that first conference win, opening up with 1-0 in the conference, and going forward from here?
It's a great feeling to get the first win, of course, conference win, but to beat the 2-time SWAC champs.
Right.
Was a little more icing on the cake. They're a very good football team.
Right.
Their record right now doesn't indicate it, but to go down in hostile territory on Thursday night and beat a good football team, you know, we're very excited. Like I said earlier, now we've got to divorce this game from our mind and get ready for Jackson State to hopefully get this second SWAC win.
Okay, one more question, Coach. You guys were able to rally from 16 down in the fourth. Could you talk about the resiliency that your team showed and the fight that they gave to come back and get that victory?
Unbelievable. I mean, that's a coach's dream, to have a team that don't give up, that continue to fight regardless of what the score is, and that's what the team did. I didn't see quit in anybody. Guys that wasn't playing, guys were playing, coaches, everybody knew that we were going to win that football game, and the resilience that they showed was unbelievable. So I take my hat off to the team. It's one win. We've got Jackson State this week, and we've got to make sure that we keep that same attitude week in and week out.
All right, thank you, Coach.
Thank you.
Can I get y'all to give me one more happy face?
One more what?
A happy face.
You got to remember, we're football players. We don't like to smile. Let me just say, from the defensive perspective, Willie Duncan was also named SWAC Defensive Player of the Week, so we're excited for Willie.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, just a reminder, your Lady Lions volleyball team will take on Alabama A&M on Friday, September 23rd at H.O. Clemens Arena and a 6:30 p.m. start. And we'll take on Alabama State on Saturday, September 24th at Mims Gymnasium on the campus of Philander Smith and a 10 a.m. start in Little Rock, Arkansas. So come on out and support your Lady Lions. Also, ladies and gentlemen, the UAPB Department of Athletics will hold its second annual Legends and Legacies, an evening with NFL stars on Thursday, September 22nd at the Clinton Presidential Center in Little Rock, Arkansas. For more information, contact the UAPB Office of Development at 870-575-8701. At this time, let's give Ms. Nikki and RJ's a round of applause for hosting us today. Once again, thank you for coming and having lunch with us. Until we meet again, keep those emails and Twitter alerts coming in. And have a wonderful Golden Lion Day.